Yo boys, welcome to a brand new Rust video. In today's video we're going to go over the best Rust settings in 2022. I have made this video before, but it is kind of outdated because, you know, I did make it a couple of months ago and I want to make a 2022 version for you guys. So I really hope you do enjoy this video and let's get on with it. So first of all boys, you want to go into the Rust in-game settings like so, and then we're just going to go through each individual one of these settings. Starting off with options, this doesn't really affect your game's FPS and your game's graphics. However, things like FOV will affect, you know, the way your FOV is. As you see, it's fucking hella zoomed in and it looks really ugly. So I recommend having this on 90 because that way you get a lot more vision around your character model and you just can see a lot better. On to the next few things, I'd put compass visibility on. At the top of my screen here, you can see the compass. It's really good for calling out stuff in game. Just at the top here you can see it, so like 20 northeast, southeast. It's just good for calling out and playing with people really. On to the next thing, rich presence. I just keep this on. It doesn't affect FPS, I'm just about it. Nudity, I put underwear on, as pixelated and uncensored actually take up more FPS, very slightly, but still if you want the highest FPS, I'd put underwear on. Hide signed, you can keep this on and off, depends on if you're like streaming or recording. Show blood, I'd keep this on, just can display if you know, hit an enemy. So I'd keep blood on. This doesn't affect your FPS, sensor recordings doesn't affect it. Limit flashing, I would also have this off, just because that way it can kind of mess with your vision in game. But I wouldn't stress about it too much. But I'd just turn all these three off, in my opinion. Physics, I have this all the way down. This is of broken objects. So, for example, if you break a door, the destruction from that door will be limited if you have this off. So, if you have it all the way up, it will be like a lot of destruction on your screen and it will mess with your FPS. But if you have this all the way down, then it will be way less, which is very good if you're in big raids. RGB lighting, just enable this. This is just for like fun stuff. However, if you are sensitive to light, I would probably turn the brightness down a bit. But yeah, that's for options. Now onto user interface. This is kind of all preference for the most part. This doesn't affect FPS in any way. However, user interface scale, people like this having 1, which is where your HUD is really big, like so. But I personally like it all the way down. I just think it looks very clean and has a nice aesthetic to it. But yeah, this is all personal preference. Show HUD, I personally would have on. Show chat, mute global chat. You can have this on and off, doesn't affect FPS. Audio switch channels, I just keep this on. Show name tags, I would keep on so that way you know who's who. Game tips, you can have this on if you're new to the game. But if you're not new to the game, turn it off. And then inventory player model, I would personally keep this on because you can see your character. And I just think it looks a lot better than having it turned off. But to be fair, if you're in your inventory, then it does give you a little bit more vision to the left side of your screen here. But I would just personally keep this on so that way you can see your character. Now onto audio. Like I say, again, this is kind of personal preference. But in my opinion, I would keep master volume all the way up. Music volume, I'd keep all the way down. Menu music volume, keep all the way down. Voices volume, have this on like 1 to 2. So that way you can hear in-game voices. But besides that, you don't really want this too high because people can like ear rape you in games. And if you're in a gunfight and they're downed and they start screaming, it can really mess you up. Game sound volume, I'd have this all the way up. Instrument volume and voice prop volume you can have down. But of course, for the sake of the video, I'm going to lower these back down because it is very loud. However, I suggest having it to the max. This way you can just hear a lot more around you. Then speaker mode, I keep this on stereo. It sounds the best. And quite honestly, I don't really know what the others do. Now on to the next thing is controls. Yet again, boys, this is all personal preference for these first couple of you. On screen, graphics, image effects, experimental, that will be where we get into the nitty gritty stuff. However, controls, keep this all how you'd like. My keybinds are a bit weird. For instance, I have spacebar as my crouch. People flame me for it, but it is what it is. And then sense, I recommend having a lower sense on this game. As you know, people aren't like flying around your screen and stuff. Most of the time they'll just be stationary. But yeah, that yet again is personal preference. I'll leave a link down in the description to how to change your sense with the in-game command console as shown here. and I'll leave a link down in the description for you guys to check that out. Now going onto screen, I recommend having this 1920 by 1080. If you like playing stretched, then of course play stretch resolution. However, in my opinion, 1920 by 1080 looks the best, looks the cleanest, and also gives me kind of the most FPS. In this game, in my opinion, stretch doesn't majorly help with FPS, but you can experiment with it. There is many different resolutions out there, and I recommend trying which one suits you best. Please have your mode exclusive, because if you don't have it exclusive and you have it in like window mode, for example, this will actually reduce your FPS, as the game, it's the Rust game and the Rust application isn't being the main priority. So make sure you have this exclusive to get the highest FPS. VSync, please have this off. It will mess with your FPS, makes the game look crappy, and it's just a bit iffy. FPS limit, I have this is at 0, so that way you can get the most out of your FPS, and it can try to push the highest FPS. However, if you do have a very low end PC, I recommend capping this at whatever your PC can like usually average. If your PC can average like 60 FPS, I would maybe cap it as 60. If it can average 70, I'd maybe cap it as 70. However, in my personal case, I just have it completely turned off, so that way it can push to the absolute limit that my PC can handle. Now, boys, onto graphics. Graphics in this game are quite weird, because a lot of these graphics won't actually affect your game in like any visual way. However, will take a massive hit to your FPS. So let's go top to bottom, and I'll go through each individual one with you guys. So, graphics quality. This is just how your game will look. Like, overall, it will just make your game look a lot better if you have it a lot higher. Make it look a lot worse if you have it a lot lower. In my opinion, I would not go above 4 for graphics quality, as I've seen a lot of tests, videos for this game. And if you go above 4, it is the most minor of differences, to the point where there's no point and it takes a massive hit to your FPS. However, I also would not go below 1, as if you go below 1, the game will just look very crappy. So in my opinion, if you have a low-end PC, go with 1. If you have a mid-end PC, go with 2 to 3. If you have a high-end PC, go with 4. However, do not go above 4, as it will take a massive hit to your FPS. Now, onto render scale. Render scale, do not have this below 1.0. It will make your game look terrible, make your game look very visually, just like, look at this. It is just so blurry. It looks like you're not even wearing glasses, and it just looks really crappy. So please keep this on 1. It will make your game look the best. Now, onto NVIDIA DLSS. I turn this off personally. I think it kind of messes with my FPS a little bit. Only by like a few frames, but I would recommend having this off. Shadow quality. This is weird for some people, as I know some people in my friendship group who have this on like 3, for instance, so all the way up, and it actually makes their game run better, weirdly. And I've also experienced this myself, but it's on days. Some days it will run better and it will actually increase my FPS, and then on other days it will actually make it worse and I'll have to play with 0. So I recommend experimenting with this yourself, but all this will do really is just make your shadows look a bit better. However, if you're on a low-end PC, I still recommend having this all the way down, but please experiment with this setting, as some people makes their game run a little bit smoother, and some people it won't, so try to experiment with this. Show cascades, I have this no cascades. It will just allow you to have a lot more like freedom and just not have a lot of junk really blocking up your screen. So please just turn this off. Onto max shadow lights. Please have this all the way down. It will make your game look a tiny little bit better, maybe. Just maybe in some areas, in like forests and stuff, but it will heavily mess up your FPS. So please have this off. Water quality, yet again, have this off. There is no need to have water quality on. Unless you're some shark and you like swimming a lot, I genuinely would just turn this off. There's no point in having this anything above 0. It won't make your game look better, it just makes the water look better. And if you're next to like some ocean or whatever, it will take up a lot of your FPS. So please have this off. Water reflections. Water reflections, again, have this off. It will just mess with your FPS. Won't make the game really look any better. and will just take a heavy hit to your FPS. World reflections, please have this off again. Won't help your FPS in any way, shape or form. Just turn this off, boys. Now onto shader level and draw distance. In my opinion, I would put shader level between 100 and 300. Anything above 300, there's not really that much of like a noticeable difference, and it will just kind of mess with your FPS. But yeah, so I recommend having 100 to 300 for this. Draw distance, your game can actually only see players at about 1,500 draw distance. So I personally recommend having a 1,000 draw distance if you're on a low-end PC, and then a 1,500 if you're on a higher-end PC. However, going all the way up to the max won't actually allow you to see players any better. However, it will allow you to see structures better. So there's a bit of a difference here and a bit of a correlation. But yeah, test it out for yourself. I wouldn't go below 1,000 because you won't be able to see players that clearly. However, I also wouldn't go above about 1.5k as it will just mess with your FPS, and the only real benefit is being able to see structures a bit as a bit of a farther distance. So if you'd like to see structures at a farther distance, then of course have it up. But in my personal recommendation, just for players and being able to visibly see players, I'd have 1,000 to 1,500. Anisotropic filtering, parallax mapping, these two, just keep them off. They don't do anything with your game, and they just add depth to textures in game, and trust me, they'll just heavily mess with your FPS, so please keep this off. Grass displacement, I would personally keep this on as it allows you to see objects in grass when dropped a lot easier. For instance, if you kill a guy with like a gun, like an AK, the gun will then be a lot more visible on the ground, so I personally recommend to keep this on. Now, video reflex mode, if you have, of course, a video card, I would have this on plus boost. Heavily reduces latency, and in some cases can increase FPS, so I recommend having this on plus boost in my opinion. Or you could just have it on if you have a bit of a lower end PC, but if it's a bit of an average to high end PC, I would recommend having this on plus boost. The latency marker, I would just have this off. There's really no point, it doesn't really help much, and I would just keep this off. Now, onto mesh quality. Particle quality, please have this all the way down. It will just heavily mess with FPS, especially if you're in a particle dense area with lots of like gunfire and lots of particles in the area. I just recommend having this off. Won't really affect how the game looks really. But yeah, turn this off. Object quality, I recommend having this at about 100. If you have it all the way up, of course your game will look very nice. However, your FPS will also take a massive hit. So make sure you're having this on about 100-ish. Tree quality, again, I would have this on about 100 because it will make leaves and just... Tree quality, I recommend having this on about 100 again, because this way it will make trees and stuff a lot more clearer to see through. However, it still won't take a giant hit to your FPS. Max tree meshes, yet again, I would have this halfway. This way you can see through leaves a lot better. However, won't take a massive hit to your FPS. And then the last three, terrain quality, grass quality, and decor quality, I'd have this all the way down. It really won't change the way the game looks, and it will just take a massive hit to your FPS. Onto image effects, I recommend having everything off. Not a single one of these settings will help with your FPS, and they will just make your game in some cases look a bit better, but then for some things like motion blur will actually make your game look worse. So I recommend having this all off. Then finally, experimental, please have everything off. This will not help with your game's FPS at all, and it will just make your game actually look a lot worse in cases, and it will just take a massive hit to your FPS. There you have it, guys. That is the best Rust settings in 2022. I really do hope this video did help you guys out a lot. And just before this video does end, I would just like to say, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And also, thank you for all of the support this channel has been gaining. I know I've been pretty inactive here and there. However, I've always came back, and the support has just been mental on all of these videos. But yeah, I really hope this video did help you guys out. I hope you have a great rest of the year, and see ya, boys.